of cities to our national economy and shares our commitment to bring investment and economic growth to neighborhoods and individuals that have been left behind. Last September, I had the privilege of leading a delegation of mayors on behalf of this conference to meet with Secretary Mnuchin on the new Opportunity Zone provisions included in the recently enacted Tax Cut and Jobs Act. We're extremely appreciative of the Secretary's commitment to support the Opportunity Zones program. Without question, he understands the incredible potential Opportunity Zones represent in our efforts to attract income and investment in low and moderate neighborhoods. Mayors, please join me in welcoming our special guest, the Secretary of the U.S. Department of Treasury, Steven Mnuchin.
Thank you for that kind introduction and for the invitation to be here today. It's an honor to join all of you. I recently had the pleasure of meeting with a delegation of mayors from the Conference of Mayors at the Treasury Department. We had a productive meeting. I realized that as mayors, you do not simply represent your constituents, you literally work on behalf of thousands of families, friends, and neighbors. With that in mind, I'd like to take the opportunity to update you on a policy that is important to many of your communities back home, Opportunity Zones. As most of you are aware, Opportunity Zones were created by the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, and it's one of the most important and dynamic aspects of the law. It's no exaggeration to say that Opportunity Zones will have a real positive impact for families and businesses across the country. It will help revitalize distressed communities, generate momentum where it is needed, create jobs, and ensure that more families will share in our overall economic success. The program works by offering capital gains tax relief to encourage long-term investments in businesses located in economically struggling areas. I've said this before, but bears repeating. Opportunity Zones create an ideal vehicle for entrepreneurs and investors who want to create positive social impacts. We are already seeing tremendous optimism from business and communities alike. In fact, we believe that more than $100 million will be committed for investments in this area. At the Treasury Department, we are in charge of issuing regulations to implement Opportunity Zones. We have worked to provide as much flexibility as possible to accommodate the needs of the communities and potential investors interested. For example, we worked with states and local government partners to certify over 8,700 zones in all 50 states, DC, and the 5 U.S. territories. We've also reviewed comments from many interested parties, including the U.S. Conference of Mayors, and provided as much clarity as we can consistent with the law. For instance, we made clear that all capital gains, both short and long-term, qualify for the incentive. We have identified the term substantial improvement of existing property. In doing so, we excluded the value of purchased land where property is located. This makes it much easier for the rehabilitation of existing buildings in blighted areas to meet the threshold for incentive. We've proposed that the term substantially all tangible assets in an Opportunity Zone business should mean 70% of the tangible assets. This makes it easier for business to have a portion of their operations outside the zone without losing the incentive for making an impact inside the zone. And we propose rules to allow Opportunity Zone businesses to have up to 31 months to use working capital for the improvements of the tangible property. By doing this, we've made it easier for business to accumulate capital for projects that require a substantial ramp-up period. We believe that the range of possibilities is nearly limitless. Let me just give you some examples. An entrepreneur with capital gains can fund a new business in a tract near a university to bring cutting-edge technology from the classroom and the lab to the global marketplace. A manufacturer with capital gains can create a subsidiary to build a new production line in a multi-acre zone to take advantage of tax-efficient capital expenditures while providing jobs in low-income communities. A fulfillment company can joint venture with investors with capital gains to build a new warehouse and logistics facility in a tract near the interstate to better meet customer demand for next-day delivery. A real estate developer can establish a partnership with local investors to create affordable workforce housing that will enhance the livability of our cities and towns. We are particularly proud of the Opportunity Zones incentive because it will ensure not only that capital is deployed in our country, but it is invested in a way that will achieve profound results by restoring the promise of prosperity to people and communities that have been left behind. We plan to issue shortly a second set of Opportunity Zone proposed regulations that will provide additional certainty for both business and investors. We will clarify, as we have already indicated in the press, that income is not the same as revenues for the requirement that 50% of a zone's business gross income must come from the active conduct of business in the Opportunity Zone. We are also reviewing appropriate safe harbor rules for meeting the test based on where services are performed and where the tangible property is located to create additional opportunities. These zones are an important part of the President Trump's economic agenda in the category of tax cuts. The three main parts of the broader agenda are tax cuts, regulatory relief, and improved trade relations. I am pleased to report that this policy agenda is working. In fact, if you remember anything from my economic update today, you should remember the number 3 because of these policies. In 2018, real GDP is projected to exceed 3% for the first time in 13 years. Wages rose by over 3%, the highest nominal increase in nearly a decade. Unemployment is historically low at 3.9%. We just saw an astounding 312,000 jobs added in December, and more Americans are entering the workforce because of a renewed sense of optimism. Finally, the World Economic Forum recently announced the United States is no longer number 3, it is now number 1 in the most competitive economy in the world, receiving the top rank for the first time in 10 years. These results are happening because we are making our country competitive again. The Tax Cuts and Jobs Act does more than create opportunity zones. It lowers tax rates for American families and businesses to more closely align with the rates of foreign competitors. It encourages repatriation of profits from overseas. It allows business to immediately expense capital expenditures, encouraging greater investment here in the United States. In large part because of these policies, companies are now investing hundreds of billions of dollars to establish and expand U.S. business operations. Savings are also being passed on to workers in the form of more generous compensation and new jobs, in addition to lower tax bills. Tax cuts complement our effort to provide regulatory relief and improve trade agreements. In our trade negotiations, we are aiming to break down decades-old barriers to markets around the world. We are working with China to achieve concrete changes to our trading relationship and open their economy to our companies. President Trump and President Xi had a productive meeting at the G20 in Buenos Aires. A joint delegation continued these discussions in China earlier this month, and I, along with Ambassador Lighthizer, look forward to meeting with Vice Premier Leo Hood next week here in Washington. The new U.S.-Mexico-Canada agreement will modernize our trading relationships in North America and create some of the highest standards ever to protect intellectual property rights, support small and mid-sized business, open markets for agriculture, and increase manufacturing. We hope for its speedy passage through Congress. I know that mayors have been strong advocates for trade agreements in the past, and I hope that your voice of support will be heard again here. The U.S. Trade Representative has also announced negotiating objectives with Europe. We will work together with our colleagues to lower tariffs to eliminate non-tariff barriers. President Trump is also strongly committed to reciprocal trade with the rest of the world. Too often, current international rules, foreign nations can impose substantially higher tariffs on our goods. In conclusion, the President's program of cutting taxes, reducing regulatory burdens, in improving trade relations is creating higher economic growth, more jobs and higher wages. Our task is now to make sure that it works for all Americans, no matter where they live. I commend you each for your service to your communities. I appreciate the opportunity to be here with you today. Thank you very much.